Hello, everyone, and welcome to the May 8th, 2022 edition of the Boxing Source Radio Show. I am your host, James Bell, the leader of the Boxing Source. And you can catch us on social media through Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and through YouTube. This live, if you're listening live, of course, it's on YouTube. A recorded version will still be on YouTube, and it will be available through iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, whatever you use for your favorite podcast. And yes, this is as I said, the May 8th, 2022 episode of the Boxing Source Radio Show. And it is episode 1 of season 8 of the Boxing Source Radio Show. That's right, the first episode, the pilot episode, took place on the first weekend of May, after Floyd Mayweather versus Manny Pacquiao. And, we have had a show consistently for 7 years. That's right, 7 years. That is why we say that, according to reports, this is the longest running boxing podcast in existence. As we just, talk boxing, we have people columnist guests come in, talk and, chop it up. And, we're just trying to stay consistent as possible. Shout out to Alan Toussaint, who has been listening to this podcast here for a while, man. We thank you for listening in. And like I said, man, it's been a long time. We've had multiple guests on the show, a lot that we could name. For me, I think the very first guest was Super Zab Judah. We've had Riddick Bowe. We've had Bo Mack, Coach Bo Mack. We've had Austin Trout on multiple occasions. We've had Raquel Miller. We've had Tika Hemingway on the show. We've had, let's see, who else has been on the show? It's been such a long run, man. We've had Willie Monroe Jr. on the show. Let's see, who else? Like I said, I did mention Austin Trout. We've had a previous guest that's been, kind of like a guest speaker, but a lot of people think that this person is very controversial, and that is Mr. Rick Glazer. Yes, we've had Rick Glazer. We've had Kobe Soldier Breedy, and his coach and trainer, Floyd Seymour. Hopefully, we'll get them back on here pretty soon to get update news from them. But we've had many others on this particular podcast over the years, and it, of course, has grown to having a channel on YouTube, and now we have interviews on YouTube as well. So not only can you catch the podcasts, like I said, that are available on the podcast platforms, but you also have interviews and more on the YouTube channel. So it's been a great run. I'll probably, run back, run it back as far as like, overall review of being in, going through or completing 7 seasons, but also, we'll talk about a few other things in reference to what we've had over the course of this podcast. But with this edition being the edition for May 8th, 2022, of course, we got to talk about what happened last night. Was in Las Vegas, Nevada, Las Vegas, Nevada, right? The WBA light heavyweight championship was on the line with Dmitry Bivol against Saul Canelo Alvarez, or Santos Saul Alvarez Barragan. Dmitry Bivol came in as the defending light heavyweight champion, came in undefeated, came in there with a record of 19-0, with 11 of those wins by way of knockout. Some people were calling him UD as he had a string of unanimous decision victories over a series of opponents. And this is, what we kind of like talked about in the previous podcast where we did preview this particular fight. You did have as his opponent the top guy that was in the pound for pound rankings by many, the undisputed super middleweight champion, the unified champion at 160 pounds, the unified champion at 154 pounds, Canelo Alvarez, came in there with a professional record of 57 wins, one loss, and two draws. And both of these guys, came in there uh, at the same age, at 31 years old. But of course, with Canelo getting to be a professional at 15 years old, he was able to get his experience as a professional in comparison to Dmitry Bivol, having him an amateur career before his professional debut in 2014. Canelo had his professional debut in 2005. That's right. I mean, that is, 17 years ago there for Canelo Alvarez when he had his professional debut of some, or at least of some sort. And so, going into this bout, we've seen that this is his Canelo's second stint at 175 pounds. He did face Sergey Kovalev for the WBO version of the light heavyweight title a few years back, and was able to knock out Sergey Kovalev in the 11th round, whatever it was, and won the WBO belt before going back down in weight, eventually becoming the undisputed champion at 168 pounds. But going up here against Dmitry Bivol, like I said, undefeated WBA super light heavyweight champion. Had a recent win over Umar Salamov over in Ekaterinburg, Russia. And we'll kind of like talk about that a little bit here on this show of some sort. So we will definitely get into this and the thing about it is that you'll kind of like talk about the things that I was looking at in ahead of this particular bout. Um, I was, seeing that I was favoring Canelo Alvarez in this particular matchup. Why? Because I, for some time now, had not been convinced about Dmitry Bivol. I wasn't really convinced about Dmitry Bivol. Yes, he had faced the likes of Joe Smith Jr., John Pascal, what was it, Lennon Castillo. I did say Umar Salamov, who I think was top contender there. He did also face, Sullivan Barrera, after he had won the belt when he defeated Trent Broadhurst back in 2017. In 2018, he had a fight against Isaac Chilemba again in the Hard Rock Hotel in Atlantic City. I was there live. This was the co-feature bout to Kovalev versus Eleider Alvarez, where Eleider Alvarez, knocked out Sergey Kovalev in that. But me watching Dmitry Bivol there against Isaac Chilemba, it was a unanimous decision win. But this was like coming off his first round knockout over Broadhurst. I was expecting a little bit more from him. I thought he was going to be able to stop Chilemba. Yes, Chilemba at the time was a pretty difficult fighter to stop or knock down. But given the youth and the amateur background at the time from Dmitry Bivol, I thought he was going to be able to stop him, but he didn't. And that, and also he was coming off that win over Sullivan Barrera too, where he knocked out and stopped Sullivan Barrera, with the last round. So I was thinking like, okay, is he really the guy, or is he just someone that is, as a famous person in boxing said, straight up and down, no special effects, you know? But he did have, wins over John Pascal, where he had a notable saying after that particular fight that um, he was kind of like tentative to try to step up the gas with John Pascal because he was wary of Pascal's power. Then he faced Joe Smith Jr., who is the current WBO light heavyweight champion, won by unanimous decision. But had those string of wins there in his undefeated streak going up against Canelo Alvarez, and I thought that it was more about the skill set of Canelo Alvarez and his experience as a professional that would make him have the advantage over a guy in Dmitry Bivol that was undefeated, but didn't have the level of pro experience and the amount of high profile fights that Canelo Alvarez had. Now, before I try to break things down here, I want to bring in a guest to the show here, checking in from, of course, the great state of Ohio, representing there in Ohio. As you see there, Ohio runs boxing, as he says. So, what's going on? What's happening, man?
What's good, man? What's good? Hanging in there. Can you hear me?
Yeah, what's good?
Yeah, man. We're talking about the fight, man.
Yeah, wanted to get your thoughts on it, man. Like how you what did you think about performance or the scorecards? Because immediately after the fight, me watching it live, I thought like with them saying unanimous decision, 115 to 113 in favor of the winner, and still WBA light heavyweight champion Dmitry Bivol. I thought it was, hey, 7-5. You know what? I'll take that. I'll take it. You um, the first half of the fight, I felt like Canelo Alvarez was landing the more telling shots. He was mixing things up from an offensive perspective. He was catching Bivol in, a few instances, catching him with feints and stuff like that. Um, but it was nothing to the point where Dmitry Bivol was seriously hurt. He got caught with a couple of uppercuts, over the course of the rounds that I thought would have worked on him. I thought the body shots would have, took a toll on Dmitry Bivol, but it didn't. And so in the second half of the fight, or pretty much from like round 6 on, he kind of got, used to what Canelo was doing and just said, you know what, I'm gonna just keep a high guard. I'm gonna keep my arms tight so that he can't really get to the inside and land on me on the inside. And I'm gonna just see if either Canelo gets tired or I could just outwork him. And pretty much in the second half of the fight, both of those things happened. You saw, Canelo getting tired. He wasn't, dodging and dipping and blocking the punches like he was in the first half of the fight. And Dmitry Bivol was still consistent as far as like his offensive output was concerned because, in the first half of the fight, he was throwing 3 or 4 punches at a time. And in the second half of the fight, he was throwing 3 or 4 punches at a time. But in the second half, he started landing a lot more of those shots. And he was really, tagging Canelo there, particularly from the ninth round on. He was able to do that. So he was able to hang on through those 12 rounds. And, that last round was pretty much the difference in the fight. All 3 judges scored every single round the same. All 3 judges scored those last few rounds in favor of Dmitry Bivol. And that 12th round, giving him that 12th round, gave him the fight. So he stays unbeaten, keeps that WBA belt, and stays champion. That's pretty much from an analytical perspective. Want to get your thoughts on it before I get on it from a quote unquote fan's perspective here in a bit.
Yeah, pretty much a lot of stuff you were saying was pretty much I seen the same thing about. Let me ask you a question. Did you notice Canelo stopped going to the body?
I didn't really notice it, but I think with that is because I don't feel like he thought that he was as successful as going to the body as he thought he would have been.
Right.
Because he went to it early, but it wasn't affecting Bivol one. And then, like I said, from like round 6, 7, and 8, with him trying to go to the body, a lot of those shots were getting blocked, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing was, Canelo kind of like approached this particular fight kind of similar to the way that he approached the fight against Callum Smith, where he fought a taller guy. Pretty much ended up, being a bigger guy because Callum Smith really had to get himself to. He had to work to get down to 168 or make 168 for that fight. But Canelo just, what he did was he didn't just hit, or try to land shots. He just threw and tried to land anything. That's why, people talked about that punch where he just goes and hits the arm of Callum Smith, and then that really just affected Callum Smith for the duration of the fight. But here against Dmitry Bivol, he tried that same thing and didn't quite work. Dmitry Bivol was still working his jabs, working combinations, throwing and throwing. And the difference from the first half to the second half was, in the first half, Dmitry Bivol was pretty much fighting either stationary or on the back foot. In the second half, and particularly in like the ninth rounds on, you seen Bivol just really step on the gas, go forward, throw combinations, but also come forward and throw combinations, be the guy, being the pursuer in that particular fight and forcing Canelo Alvarez to be on the ropes.
Yeah. Yeah. I think this fight here, it definitely wasn't a close fight. I actually predicted that Bivol will fight him in September. Now, I don't know if it's smart for Canelo to take this rematch, man. I'm gonna be honest to you. It's tough, but his pride, he's Mexican, man. He's a prideful fighter, man. I think he's definitely going to win. I just don't see Canelo doing anything different. Canelo is not a volume puncher. He fights in spurts here and there, and Bivol throws more punches, man. Bivol is way more busy. And I just don't see that changing in the second fight. I just don't. It's going to be interesting, but I'm going to tell you this. I do like the fact that Canelo has lost for the fact that we should be able to get balance. These guys should be able to start fighting each other, just waiting on one guy to fight everybody. That's the blessing to me personally, seeing that happen. I don't know. That's just my point. I don't know how you feel about it.
Well, I might get on that from a boxing fan's perspective in a little bit. I'm kind of like waiting on another guest to talk about it because this person is pretty disappointed about the result. But I got another guest in here, longtime guest. One of the first few columnists that's been on the Boxing Source radio show over the course of the 7 years. But people know him now as the boxing academic. The boxing academics in the building. What's going on, man?
Hey, what's going on, fellas? How y'all doing today?
How you doing, man?
Chill mode.
Doing okay. Doing okay. Cutting grass. I thought I was gonna get done before I got on the show, and my headset don't work, so I guess I'm gonna take a small break.
Right.
Have I took my head away? I didn't hear what Ohio, what you had said about the fight. Do you mind repeating what you said?
Oh yeah, I thought it wasn't competitive. I felt like Bivol did everything he wanted to do. He boxed, and I said Canelo fought in spurts like he always do. He gassed it out. You can tell in the corner, he was just, he looked like he was defeated before he actually got defeated, in my opinion. You can tell out of the frustration, picking Bivol up. It was a lot of things going in that fight, but Bivol looked great. He's not a guy that's fancy. He's fundamental, basic, nothing really special, but he's good. You get what I'm saying? So, but yeah, I think Canelo, he got dominated, and the scorecards was just unbelievable. Like I couldn't believe that. But again, like Boxing Source said, we can take it 7-5, take it. But come on, man, that wasn't a 7-5 fight. That just wasn't. Just wasn't a 7-5 fight. Me and a couple other friends was watching that together, and we was all getting the same scorecards. It was crazy. But
What was your scorecard?
huh?
What was your scorecard?
Man, I had it 118, 110.
Ooh,
And that's like 9-3.
10.
What is that?
That's 10. 10-2.
Oh, 10 rounds. Okay, 10-2. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hey. Yep. So I guess I'll give my thoughts. So there were a few rounds to me that I was on the fence and I scored ties. And I have my scorecard upstairs. I'm outside, so I can't go down the list. But there were a few that it was the dilemma between, do I score Canelo's, sharp, heavy punches, but far and frequent in between, or do I score Bivol's, jabs and just consistent work? And so, a couple of those I scored ties, but I'd say the problem that Canelo had was he normally fights people, and my neighbor about to come. Give me a second. He normally fights people, and when he fights people, he. Hey John, how you doing? And when he when he fights people, he gets on his front foot, right? And so Canelo gets on his front foot, and then he waits for you to either be flat-footed and still, or he waits for you to make a move, and then he either does the little leaping left, or then the right hand kind of over the top. But he don't do a lot of attacking when he's on his back foot. And so I saw a video from Fox Boxing that explained it very well, where he showed, Canelo every time he was on the front foot, Bivol either, got out the way, so he moved, like he took a step over to the left or whatever to get away from, the strong hand, and then Canelo had to reset, or he would do something to fill up the space when he was on the front foot to where Canelo had to, protect that spot. And then when Canelo retreated, that's when he would attack Canelo. And so when we saw all them times when Canelo was like backing up, and there were rounds when he was backing up and he was tired and he would back up with his hands down, and then he would get caught with like 2 or 3 like 1-2s or whatever.
Yes.
So it seemed like Bivol had a great plan to where he saw the flaws in Canelo, where he could only truly attack off the front foot. And then if you got him, if you took up the space on that front foot and didn't let him attack, or if you moved off from it when he was planning to attack, when you took up the space, he would retreat. And then once he retreated, then you attack him. The other thought I had on the fight was that Canelo's bad habits caught up to him. He was always, to me, able to, fight fighters that are less skilled than him, and he would get away with throwing 5 shots around and then them landing them heavy shots. And then I could see Bivol's like tight guard where Canelo was hitting his elbow, and I'm sure that I'm not sure. I know that hurts where you punch somebody to the body and then their elbow down there and you hit their elbow. So all that stuff kind of discouraged him. But between the bad habits of not jabbing, setting up stuff, and just literally just walking and throwing them hard shots, and the bad habits of not having to really truly compete and like go the distance in a I wouldn't say a grueling fight, but a competitive fight. Like Canelo hadn't had to dig in a while, and this is what we saw here, to where he didn't have no answers, but I mean, in that fight, Canelo wasn't finna go to the place that he needed to go, because chances are he probably would have got knocked out, obviously, as we saw. But him not facing competitive fights and not having to to dig down deep. And I saw another channel that I thought had a good comparison between the Bud and Spence fight, where we may see some similarities in that fight. Not saying, it's going to be a 1-for-1, but the fact that, you got a straight up and down person who's fundamental. We know who that is. And then you got another person who's moving up and fighting people where he really hadn't truly had to dig before, or take it to that other level. And what you think probably gonna happen when they go might be a totally different story because somebody's more athletic. But I'll let you guys speak on that. I've been talking enough.
All right. I wanted to like get into the thing there in reference to, well, I'm going back to the whole thing with, like me scoring it. Um, I pretty much had it similar to what the judges had it, 7-5. For Bivol, because that first half it was more of like, like Boxing Academic said, it was like either you scored the activity of Dmitry Bivol, or you scored the short but sharp and hard punching of Canelo Alvarez. And for what I was looking at initially, it was more about what Canelo Alvarez was landing with in comparison to what Bivol was doing. And like I was saying, in one particular round, like 5 or 6, there was a couple of instances where Bivol was throwing punches and he was missing a lot of those shots. And Canelo was like either blocking or dodging them, or like ducking around them. And it just looked like Canelo was showing his defensive ability in those particular instances. But in the second half of the fight, you just didn't see that. And there were a lot of times where Canelo would walk in and he would just have his high guard and try to walk in and go close and try to land in shots. And he would throw like 1 or 2 shots, or 1 and 2, and he would leave himself open, and he would get caught with either a left or a right where the opening was by Dmitry Bivol. And then there were other times when Bivol would kind of like hit Canelo from a distance, and you could see, as y'all mentioned, the disappointment in Canelo. Like he'll like breathe heavily, or be like, whew, and then just walk a couple steps over, and then try to reset. And you saw that pretty much like happening from like rounds 7 and 8, and then from rounds 9 and especially 10 through 12, the activity of Bivol picked up a little bit, but the accuracy was much better in those particular rounds than in the first half of the fight. And that's where you really saw, Canelo Alvarez really struggle at that particular point. And so, that was, where it just got to the thing where it was like 7-5 in my eyes. And that, hey, yeah, that he goes up to 175 pounds. He did have a win over, Sergey Kovalev a few years ago, but going up against a younger guy that's pretty much around the nearest prime, sometimes those things don't work. And like I said, the strategy that he used here against Dmitry Bivol didn't work. And so that ends up having him lose this particular fight. And so that's the second loss of his professional career. First loss since losing to Floyd Mayweather Jr. Back in September of 2013. And there's like 2 things that kind of like get out of this result. There might be another one here later on down the line that I'll go into, hopefully. But first, on the side of Canelo Alvarez, from a business perspective, of course, they said that he had this little 2-fight deal going on where he would fight Dmitry Bivol and fight Gennady Golovkin. With him losing to Dmitry Bivol, man, I don't want to out, man. I said this last week. I don't want to see no goddamn fight with no Gennady Golovkin again, man. I don't want to see that. All right. I know he was talking about potentially having a rematch with Dmitry Bivol. I don't care if it's Dmitry Bivol. I don't care if it's David Benavidez. I don't care if it's Jermell Charlo. Anybody but Golovkin. Like, Like, I don't care, man. It's got to be somebody other than Golovkin. So he did mention, like, hey, I would like to have a rematch with Dmitry Bivol. So maybe that's in the cards. Bivol said he was open to, going down to 168 to face Canelo Alvarez, and it could be for the undisputed super middleweight titles. So that is an option for Dmitry Bivol, but there's also another option for Dmitry Bivol. Of course, that's at 175, and that's the winner of Joe Smith Jr. versus Artur Beterbiev, and that would be for the undisputed title at 175 pounds. And it's been a good amount of time since we, had, up until what was going to happen up in June 18th, a unification bout at 175. So you have Joe Smith Jr. and Artur Beterbiev in a unification fight, finally, at 175. And then after that, hey, you could have the undisputed champion at 175 pounds. So I know that Dmitry Bivol is looking to see if he has another fight with Canelo Alvarez. It might, still be the most lucrative fight for him by far. But hey, he could also be going after one of those guys for the undisputed championship at 175 pounds. So I think that's one thing. Each has something to consider here from this point forward. I know that Canelo is scheduled to fight. Mexican Independence Day weekend, third weekend of September. Maybe it's going to be another fight with Dmitry Bivol, but like I said, anybody but Golovkin. I don't know, man. I'm sorry. I might start up a hashtag. Hashtag anybody but Golovkin. Yeah, I might do that. So don't be surprised if you see the hashtag anybody but Golovkin floating around there. But any thoughts on what could be next for either one of those fighters?
You said be next for who?
For either Bivol or Canelo.
I think it's no brainer for Canelo's he gonna fight the Bivol. He got too much pride. Too much pride. He gonna take the Bivol. I don't think it's good. I don't know, man. I think that's definitely gonna be the fight next. But again, I think it's good if they do he do fight Bivol, because then it's gonna put pressure on these other guys who've been sitting waiting on Canelo. That's been the most frustrating thing for me, is that people have been complaining about Canelo fighting this guy. Canelo ain't fighting this guy. They've been talking about Canelo. Okay, Canelo lost now. Okay, and he's gonna fight the guy who beat him. What are you gonna do? Now the pressure is on you. How are you gonna build your legacy? I get so sick and tired of these guys talking about Canelo. So now let's see if these other guys gonna mix it up. Let's get back to where boxing, where guys were just fighting each other and wasn't worrying about if they lose, they might not get this guy. No, just get back to boxing. You can make something fight. So that's what I'm hoping, that boxing comes back to the norm where these guys are fighting each other instead of sitting waiting for a ticket for one person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's where I'm at.
What is that thing there with Willy Wonka in the Chocolate Factory? I got a golden ticket.
Yep.
So
yep.
Yeah, and Benavidez kind of like talked about that when Canelo had made the comment a few weeks back, like saying that, hey, these guys should, end up just go ahead and fight each other. Like, why, they shouldn't really be, worried about what I'm going to do, or if I'm going to choose them, sit around talking about pick me. Nah, go ahead and just have these fights, because shoot, you could build your own legacy. You know what I'm saying? Build your own legacy, build your own following. Sometimes it's not, is easy to have a following like that, like Canelo Alvarez had, or someone like Oscar De La Hoya had, or something with Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather had to do something in order for him to get the following that he did, and he had to say, "Hey, I want to fight Oscar De La Hoya, and I'm going to show you that I'm better than Oscar De La Hoya," and he pretty much did that. So these other fighters that are out there, they need to see about crafting their own legacy instead of trying to chase Canelo, which is what the point that you're talking about. Real quick on the live chat here, got a question from Alan Toussaint, and that is, what does Canelo's loss do to his head going into fight with Golovkin the third time? He ain't fighting Golovkin, man. Fuck it. No, I'm just kidding. Is he rattled? Is he still confident? And does Golovkin change somehow to capitalize? Man, I don't know, man. I'll pretty much like put this out there. It's been some time, but I still have not seen Gennady Golovkin's fight there where he, unified the belts there at middleweight. He, went over there in Japan and he faced Ryota Murata, who, was kind of inactive himself there as a world champion. Like he had a fight. His last fight was in 2019 before he faced Gennady Golovkin. And from that particular fight, it was something where Murata kind of like hurt Golovkin or affected Golovkin to a point where it was similar to the Sergey Derevianchenko fight. But Golovkin still ended up stopping Ryota Murata in 9 rounds. So I'm not sure how that's going to have an effect as far as like Canelo if he does face Gennady Golovkin. One thing is like you have Canelo Alvarez that has been north of 160 pounds, for a few years now. In comparison to Gennady Golovkin, who has only had like what one or two fights north of 160 pounds his entire career. And so it's like, okay, where does Golovkin kind of like walk in at? What's his walk around weight? What is he? How much does he have to lose in order to make 160 pounds? And he's pretty much like done that for the entirety of his career. And so now he has to do this north of 40 years old, against Canelo Alvarez. And Canelo Alvarez, I'm not sure, how Golovkin is moving at this particular point, but Canelo's still going to be Canelo, walking forward or pretty much being stationary, catch and shoot, roll with the punches and everything like that, and come right back at you. And the thing about it is like Golovkin is not, as big as Bivol. Once again, to me, Golovkin is straight up and down, no special effects. And I don't think he had, and he's not better defensively than Bivol is. I'm gonna just be straight up with you. He's not better defensively, Um, and at this particular point, if you got somebody in Golovkin that is taking more shots at this point in his career against someone like Canelo that's been used to being at 168, I'm not sure like how Golovkin will be able to take those punches. But like I said, I don't want to see that fight.
I don't think he's gonna fight him.
Yeah.
I don't think they're gonna make it. The zone is pushing for that for darn sure. They want that fight more than anything.
Yeah, but and here's the other thing too, right? The way that this deal, the deal is structured, or whatever it is, or whatever they say that they have, right? They'll be spending more money out of pocket for Canelo Golovkin 3. Will they be making more money than Canelo Bivol 2? Yes, of course. But the like the amount of money that they have to shell out for that fight, I don't think so. Like if people think that he um that fans are pretty much like really demanding that fight, especially if they're trying to do it like a pay-per-view model, like they did for this fight with Canelo and Bivol. I don't know, man. That's pretty much similar to this whole that ESPN Plus pay-per-view that they do for a few boxing fights. Like I don't see how that's going to get DAZN or Perform Group or whatever it is good enough returns for them to say that, hey, we're making good enough money from this. Like I just don't see it.
Uh, I,
So
it's gonna be interesting to see if what Triple G is gonna do. Will he be willing to wait all the way to Cinco de Mayo next year? Because he waited a year before for one fight. He wouldn't have a problem get aging and waiting another year just to try to get this Canelo fight. But he's not. I definitely don't see them fight next in September, so he's gonna be on the wait. But
good.
I'm wondering if the zone will let him fight another tune-up or something to try to get him for that Cinco de Mayo, that date, So I don't even know if that's gonna happen. I don't see Canelo beating Bivol in a rematch. So I'm interested to see I'm just real interested to see what these other guys are gonna do. Cause I there's no excuses now. So I can't wait.
Here would be my thing, right? Now, excuse me. Uh if Canelo was gonna face Bivol again in September, they should. Well, if they make that announcement that they're willing to make that deal, um, there should be a guy by the name of Chris Eubank Jr. that should push to face Gennady Golovkin at this point right now. Years ago, they had this whole thing about Chris Eubank Jr. that could have potentially fought Golovkin years back instead of Kell Brook, and then you had the whole thing with Eddy Hearn and his dad and disagreement with Barry Hearn and taking a photo down or whatever. Right now, this is the time. I think this is the time for Chris Eubank Jr. to try to be or live up to this whole Eubank name or whatever it is. Go ahead and try to go after Golovkin at this particular point in this time. I know that in the live chat they're talking about the zone could potentially have a new star after what Bivol did yesterday. But he's got personality.
Man, stop it.
I'm sorry, y'all. But that's a plain ham sandwich.
You was off the hook, man.
a plain ham sandwich, no cheese, no mustard, no mayonnaise, no butter on the bread, no aioli sauce.
Oh my goodness, man!
Plain ham sandwich.
Too much, man.
I'm like, yo, man, I'm trying to see what's up with my guy, man. My guy, man, MVO, he was like he's been real upset about this result, man. Dude said they should have had Adelaide Bird.
Yeah, man. For real.
He said this result is bad for boxing. Oh man, but guy cut out. He said the result was bad for boxing. He said nobody gonna jump on Bivol like that, man. Man, I'm trying to see, man, if he can get on, yo. Oh man, because this kind of like from a business perspective, some people feel like Bivol winning doesn't really move the proverbial needle as far as like, okay, who's going to be the next star in boxing, you know? We kind of like talked about, okay, Canelo has been carrying the torch, ever since Floyd Mayweather retired, and so he's been the biggest star in boxing. For some time, when the guy was the unified heavyweight champion, Anthony Joshua was kind of like getting up there with his popularity with the endorsements and things like that, but still hadn't reached Canelo's level. So now you have, last year you had the thing with Anthony Joshua losing to Alexander Usyk, for the unified heavyweight titles. There's still a rematch that's out there. We'll see, when that happens. And now you have Canelo Alvarez, who loses to Dmitry Bivol. Someone that, like I said, like in comparison to Usyk, it's like a whole lot different. You know what I mean? So I think Usyk is the one that has personality in comparison to Dmitry Bivol. I know that in the post-fight press conference that Bivol is, joking around, kind of, being a little bit jovial or something like that. But it's like I said, it's like I told somebody, man, if you go on the box rec and you look up Dmitry Bivol and you see his picture, that's Dmitry Bivol 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, man. Like, a plain sandwich. You know what I'm saying? You don't think that I got something from Boxing App Academic, but we now have the person that I have been waiting for. Okay? This man has been pissed off since last night. All right? Now, people know him as the former president of the Deontay Wilder fan club, which, may be modified here in a little bit. We may talk about that. But he's also been a defender of El Gran Campeón Santos Saul Alvarez Barragan. That's right. That's your guy. That's my guy. That's the guy from the Boogie Down. Mr. NBO in the building. What's happening?
JR, Mike Grady, aka the Boxing Academic.
Say my only name from now on.
That's a stupid name, by the way. I'm not gonna get into that right now. Yesterday,
Don't be mad just because Canelo lost. It's okay, man. Don't try to take your anger out on other people because Canelo lost.
Yesterday was a dark day in boxing. Yesterday was a dark day in boxing history. Yesterday was a dark day in American boxing history. And yesterday was a dark day for the United States of America. And I'm going to tell you why. Let's talk boxing first of all. You have the guy, the cash cow, the face of the sport, Canelo Alvarez. You had Eddy Hearn convince him to turn down huge events with David Benavidez, with Jermell Charlo, with Errol Spence Jr. We could have had Canelo versus Spence. I've been calling for that for years. Big boxing events that will put boxing on the world stage, that will put boxing in the eyes of the casuals, that will put boxing into the forefront of not only sports media, but media in general. You had him turn that down so he could fight a nondescript Chinese Russian on an app that nobody has. Are you fucking kidding me? Not only was this on an app that nobody has, they made it pay-per-view and made it hard for people who had the app to purchase the pay-per-view. You could not even buy the pay-per-view through the app on your TV. They would send you to the DAZN app, and then the DAZN app would tell you to go to DAZN.com. You had to go through 3 steps just to buy a pay-per-view of the number one guy in the sport, and then you had him lose? What the fuck were these judges thinking? Say what you want about Oscar De La Hoya, but yesterday Canelo would have left with a draw. He would have said, I'm leaving here with something. He would have got his Denzel on. I'm leaving with something. Okay? He would have left with a draw or a victory. And it would have been the right thing to do by boxing. And then to top it off, you have this guy, Dmitry Bivol, this Russian guy who isn't Russia supposed to be sanctioned? Huh? Isn't there like some sort of invasion in Ukraine where everyone's sanctioned in Russia? So why is this Russian guy allowed to make money in the United States of America? America, okay, during Russian Victory Day weekend? Do people know that tomorrow is Russian Victory Day? Does anyone know that? Do y'all know that? I know that. Why? Because I study the enemy. And for as long as I've been an American, which is all my life, Russia has always been the enemy. And you let this fucking Russian guy come into our country, make money, and beat our number one face in boxing. Come on, Joe Biden. Come on, Sleepy Joe. How'd you let this happen on your watch, Sleepy Joe? Oh my God, this is crazy. So now, basically, Canelo is tainted. He is tainted for the rest of his career because beating Canelo will not have the same luster that it once had. You had Oscar De La Hoya pass the torch to Floyd. You had Manny Pacquiao passed the torch. He was supposed to pass it to Errol Spence. Errol Spence got injured. Okay. You had Canelo, who is now the cash cow. You know he was supposed to pass it to? He was supposed to pass it to Errol Spence. Okay. PBC realized that Pacquiao couldn't pass the torch to Spence because Spence got injured. So what did they do? They offered $55 million to Canelo Alvarez to pass the torch to Errol Spence. And Canelo Alvarez turned it down to go fight some fucking non-special effects Russian guy in a fight that barely anybody saw, and he
Basic ham
lost.
sandwich.
Yeah, it's horrible. This is bad for boxing. Eddie Hearn is ruining American boxing, and he needs to be stopped. He should not be allowed in this country anymore. Like, enough is enough. Okay? Enough is enough.
Oh man. Oh, that was
I
great.
listen to you talk about the fight.
Fuck the fight. Who cares about the fight? Don't you understand? See, this is your problem, boxing academic. You want to be some smart guy that wants to break down. Oh, look at this foot fake. Look at this jab. Look at the way he set this up. That doesn't matter. Okay, the sweet science doesn't matter. What matters is the storylines in boxing. Okay, what matters is the big picture in boxing. What matters is what's best for boxing. And what's best for boxing is not Canelo Alvarez losing to Dmitry Bivol. What's best for boxing is Canelo fighting Errol Spence, Canelo fighting Jermell Charlo, Canelo fighting David Benavidez, and maybe losing to one of them and creating the next big boxing pay-per-view star. Because let me tell you something. Dmitry Bivol won last night, but boxing lost. Because no one is going to buy a fucking ticket to see Dmitry Bivol. No one is going to buy a fucking pay-per-view to see Dmitry Bivol. This is terrible for boxing. So break it down how you want to break it down, but you need to break down and understand the big picture and what's really going on. And what really went on last night is a huge blow to the North American boxing scene because we allowed some fucking foreign European guy to infiltrate our great nation. So be happy about that.
Oh shit. Yo. So what you mean to tell me is that the majority of American society, when they speak of Dmitry Bivol, they pretty much say, I'm here to tell you right now, we don't care.
Exactly. When
Oh,
you ask him about Dmitry Bivol, suddenly everyone becomes owls. Gonna be who, who, who the fuck is Dmitry Bivol? Nobody cares, and you're not gonna get anyone to care. Listen, you can sell that bullshit in the UK. You can sell that in Europe. I know Eddie Hearn's gonna try to say, well, now the rematch is gonna be even bigger, duh. He loves that line when the cash cow loses. The rematch is gonna be even bigger. No, it's not. No one gave a damn, and no one's gonna give a damn. And that is a shame because boxing was on a hot streak and Eddie Hearn ruined it.
now,
Eddie Hearn or Canelo? Which one? Both
Eddie
or both?
Hearn. Eddie Hearn.
So Canelo didn't have any fault in it, huh?
No, because Canelo is a fighter. Okay. So he is supposed to have
oh,
people that protects him
what
from
about
the idiots of the sport.
what about Eddy Reynoso? Do you blame him?
Now we talking. Let's blame Fat Boy. Okay. Let's blame Eddy Reynoso. What the fuck were you thinking? Why the fuck would you turn down $100 million to go to PBC? $100 million. Are you fucking kidding me? It's ridiculous.
Oh man. Now, yeah, from a business perspective, man, it's just a bad move all around. Um, you talk about giving them a deal. Listen, I mean, hey, if they got the money, they got the money. Okay, cool. But from a distribution standpoint, I don't care if you have it from you got it worldwide or in multiple countries. Okay, it is better for Canelo Alvarez to be on a deal with PBC or Heyman Boxing where the fights are either on Fox or Showtime pay per view, and the zone could get the rights in the other countries to show them in the other countries. They've done that for Wilder versus Fury. But Eddy Reynoso and the Canelo team chose this route to go after Dmitry Bivol and Gennady Golovkin. Now, this whole thing was all you had to do was have a deal 45 for Charlo, 55 for Benavidez, or 55 for Errol Spence. Now, for those that are talking about this whole thing with Errol Spence, number one, they were building that fight up to be the biggest fight in boxing since Canelo was at 160 pounds.
Correct.
Y'all check the records. It's been in discussion for years. So that's number one. Number two, regardless of what would have happened if Canelo and Spence would have fought each other, did people forget that Errol Spence had been coming down to 147 from 182 pounds in 2019? So he's been trying to kill himself to make weight at 147 just so he could hold as long as he could to have the fight with Terrence Crawford. So now he'll have the fight with Terrence Crawford, and then after that, we gotta see what's next. Because now it's not going to be Canelo Alvarez because no matter what Canelo says about, oh, I'm gonna fight for another 4, 5, 6, 7 years, the luster ain't gonna be there. So
Exactly.
it is like who is out there for him to fight for him to last that long? You know what I mean? So
Golovkin.
Oh my God.
man,
Cut
oh,
this nigga off.
They both old. Hey man, let me speak to what this bullshit that Matt talking about. Matt, I was following you. MBO, I was following you until you didn't put some of the accountability on Canelo. I hear you, all the people around the team, the bigger picture for boxing. I understand that, but guess what? With somebody said something in the comments, and I agree with them. When you stare at the abyss stares back at you. And Canelo didn't seem like he was willing to stare at the abyss yesterday. He was just, like we all kind of knew what it was. Okay, you bit off a bit more than you can chew. And you let all these bad habits that you have been doing over all this time catch up with you. And you couldn't do this same stuff that you used to do. And all these faults that you had, the not jabbing, the not having to push yourself in later rounds, and push your conditioning in a tough fight, the having sort of like a rudimentary style to where you only use one style that works on everybody else, which is throwing big shots. All that stuff came up to bite him. You telling me that you ain't gonna put no goddamn culpability on him? Answer semi-truthfully.
You're talking about the breaking down of the fight. I don't care about that. But don't you get about that. If you want to talk about who's at fault in the ring, have at it. I'm talking about he should have never been put in this position in the first place. He should have been fighting Charlo. He should have been fighting Benavidez. He should have been fighting Spence. That's it. Not no fucking Dmitry Bivol.
He wants events. He doesn't just want fights. He wants events. Okay, and Canelo Alvarez versus Jermell Charlo is an event. Canelo Alvarez versus David Benavidez is an event. Canelo Alvarez versus Errol Spence Jr. is an event. Canelo Alvarez versus Dmitry Bivol is just Canelo Alvarez versus Dmitry Bivol in the eyes of those that want to kind of like venture into pop culture. So if you're trying to have someone that's supposed to be on the verge of being a crossover star in Canelo Alvarez, someone who came off of defeating Caleb Plant for the undisputed super middleweight championship on a pay-per-view platform that had about 820 something thousand buys, which was the most pay-per-view buys for the year.
Yep. And he did an $18 million gate with Caleb Plant.
And did an $18 million gate.
Come on, man.
Do people want to know? Do people actually want to find out later this week the gate for Canelo Alvarez versus Dmitry Bivol, especially when there were reports days leading into that particular event that the price tickets went down considerably because it was Canelo Alvarez versus Dmitry freaking Bivol. I'm just being straight up. Like, come on, man. Like I said, basic ham sandwich. Yeah, does he do a lot of the things that he does well? Yes. But what else? You got to understand, yes, it's a sport, but it's also a business and it's also entertainment. You got to be able to mix those three together.
Exactly. And my whole thing is, if you want to be like this Mike Grady guy, or like this jackass Brian Harkin in the comments, and you want something for the hardcores, then you know what? Put that on the undercard of a big event. Make the undercard for the hardcores. Make the main event for the boxing public. Canelo versus Bivol is not a boxing public main event. Okay? Not Canelo versus Spence is. Canelo versus Charlo is. Canelo versus Benavidez is. And I would venture to say Canelo versus Andrade is. But you cannot sell me, and you cannot sell the public on Dmitry Bivol. That's why this is a dark day for boxing, and everyone's celebrating Canelo's demise. You're going to live to regret it, I'm telling you, because this is going to basically shrink the economy of boxing for everybody.
trickle down economics, but at least you didn't go the Dr. Umar route like I posted. I said, hey, y'all stay woke. The reason why Canelo lost to Bivol is so he wouldn't lose to Jermell, Charlo, and Demetrius Andrew.
I wouldn't be surprised. But there's only one man in boxing that can rehabilitate Canelo, and that man is Al Heyman. If Canelo wants to get the luster back on his name, he needs to humble himself and go to Al Heyman and let Al Heyman resurrect what's going to be left of his career. Al Heyman was able to do that with Manny Pacquiao. He handled Manny Pacquiao beautifully towards the end, and he can do the same thing for Canelo Alvarez.
So he could manage the career of Canelo Alvarez very well, where he could set himself up to face the likes of Jermall Charlo, David Benavidez, David Morrell Jr., Errol Spence, and there could be a few other guys out there for Canelo Alvarez to face. You know, and here would have been the other thing too, right? Canelo Alvarez was at the point where, with him being a cash cow, he could have, pretty much fought anybody on the PBC route, and they would have promoted it to the point where it wouldn't have mattered who he faced. It would have had a good gate. It would have had a good buy rate because they had that, type of reach. So Canelo could have been at 168. He could have, defended his titles. He could have, fought guys like Darrell, or someone else like that. And it still would have been, pretty successful. He could have fought like a David Lemieux, like David Benavidez is going to in a few weeks, But it just didn't happen that way, and that's Eddy Reynoso for you. And real quick on Eddy Reynoso, right? Isn't this pretty much around the second consecutive week that one of his high-profile fighters ends up losing a fight? And that was the other thing too. How is it that you, as a head trainer, are having two high-profile fights with two of your fighters around the same time? Why is it that Canelo Alvarez is in Las Vegas or Las Wages or whatever you want to call it over a week before his fight with Dmitry Bivol? He should have been in his final, preparations or whatever it is to go after Dmitry Bivol, or better yet, maybe you should have had one of your chief seconds handle Oscar Valdez's fight against Shakur Stevenson, because I'm sorry, it wouldn't have mattered if it was Eddy Reynoso, if it was Chepo Reynoso, if it was Bobby Reynoso, if it was Mitchell Reynoso, or any other Reynosos. Yeah,
Armando Reynoso.
Yeah, it wouldn't have mattered. Any Reynoso. Ain't no way Oscar Valdez was going to beat Shakur Stevenson that night. Sorry, it wasn't going to happen.
So I got an answer to you why. Because the way that they train, they are used to being flat-footed and used to being able to tee off on people who don't move, who don't get out the way, who don't know how to control distance, control traffic. And the same way they was talking about what's his name a week ago, where they was like, he trained hard enough and should have won this fight. It's the same damn thing that happened to Canelo. You get somebody who can take your power, who can block it, and who can move. What you get what you get. A loss.
And if you look at a lot of the fighters that is under Eddy Reynoso, you pretty much get the same things. You get someone that either stands right in front of you, doesn't move side to side. And in the case of like a Oscar Valdez or Andy Ruiz Jr., doesn't really move, very well. We'll see what happens with this Frank Sanchez Foray or whatever it is, which we may talk about here a little bit later. But a lot of the guys that are under Eddy Reynoso or the Canelo team or have been under the Canelo team pretty much have the same style of fighting. Linear, right in front of you, either walking towards you and try to beat you down or weigh you down, or anything that really doesn't have that much defense. So you can have instances where you get caught with counters, where you could get knocked down, like Chris Arreola was able to knock down Andy Ruiz, in Ruiz's last encounter, or you pretty much have the instance where you're pretty much outclassed, like Shakur Stevenson outclassed Oscar Valdez last week. But here, it was just Dmitry Bivol just being a big guy at 175, keeping his high guard up. Like I said, straight up and down, no special effects, moving backward and forward. He didn't really move to the side. He didn't really have a extensive punch, repertoire. It was just a jab and right hand. I only seen him through one uppercut, one. The entire
He didn't
fight.
need to though.
And that's the worst part about it. He didn't even need to throw a freaking uppercut, and he was still able to get 7 rounds in. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, Oscar no jab Valdez. Yup, Oscar no jab Valdez. That's right. So I'm like, man, I don't know. I mean, people say that trainers, have a string of instances where their guys lose, a series of fights, that it shouldn't really be a thing where you just get on the trainer. But remember, we're talking about Eddy Reynoso, who is the trainer of the year. We got this guy to do this last year. Oscar Valdez's win over Miguel Berchelt and Canelo Alvarez becoming the undisputed champion at 168 pounds. And so, oh man, this is it's Eddy Reynoso and all that. So now he has a couple of guys that are high profile that have had a couple of losses. Now, how is Eddy Reynoso going to be viewed by his peers, by the general public after this? So there's that, man.
If they go back to the drawing board and tweak Canelo's style a bit more to where instead of him just looking to always capitalize off of a front foot counter and hit people with big shots, and he just incorporate to some extent a jab and then work on his endurance, then he'll be that much of a better fighter. Jabbing. That'll make him a better fighter when he does get into these bigger fights, to where somebody just don't win all these rounds and then he literally got to knock him out in the last round. Yeah. He need to learn better the boxing and stop just the one shot get you out of there. Because that's has saved him in these last few fights. Like that shit, it didn't fly yesterday.
Because that's a good point. Because you think about his past 3 fights. You had this fight here with Dmitry Bivol. You had the fight against Caleb Plant, where Caleb Plant looks like he's really outboxing him and frustrating him to a certain point. You had the fight with Billy Joe Saunders, where Billy Joe Saunders had his moments there against Canelo Alvarez. So you kind of like have it to a point where, hey, maybe he has to either change some things up, or maybe the tires are getting a little bit thin there for Canelo Alvarez, because he can't really fight like he's very stationary. Yeah, he's had he had knee problems and things like that, but he has to be able to move his feet better. He has to be able to move side to side, because if not, especially if he's going to stay around 168 or whatever it is. Like there's going to be guys there at 168 that are going to pick him apart because they're going to be significantly bigger than him when they go into this match. Just like here with Bivol at 175. The thing
And not
about
to
it
mention
is,
he's getting older too.
right? Yeah, I mean, he's getting older, yes, but he's getting older in professional years. Like I
Yeah,
said,
boxing years.
yeah, like he's been there for 16 or 17 years as a professional, and I thought it would have been a factor here against Dmitry Bivol, but it just wasn't because the things that he was trying to do as he has built himself up as a professional, where he does the feints, where he sets up shots, where he tries to go up, up top, but then ends up going down low. That didn't work against Dmitry Bivol's guard. So if you're not able to do that, then what is your adjustment going to be? And there wasn't really that much of adjustment. And that's another thing there that I was going to bring up with Eddy Reynoso is that how is it that Canelo Alvarez, even though he was landing a few shots here and there in the first half of the fight, it wasn't something where he had a significant advantage over Dmitry Bivol. Dmitry Bivol was still doing the same things that he was doing in the first half of the fight, in the second half of the fight, and you really didn't see much of an adjustment from Canelo Alvarez. So, from a trainer's perspective, you should be able to watch and see what Dmitry Bivol's doing and seeing what your guy's doing and make the adjustments. And you didn't see it,
Man, it's
And
all well and good to that gas tank start
the
not
gas tank
having
starts
gas
going
in it.
down. Yep. And you have a couple of mental lapses here and there that you get caught with a shot that you really shouldn't be caught with. That's why like you've seen instances where Bivol lands and Canelo's like frustrated because like he's saying, shoot, I allowed that to happen. I dropped my guard. I didn't see this punch or whatever it is. I'm like, that's not me. That's not Canelo. But hey, it still happened, you know? So he got to be able to get past all that. Like you said, make an adjustment, develop having a better jab and a consistent jab, and sticking with that to build to other things. Because just waiting on the activity of your opponent, sometimes that ain't always going to work, So there's that.
We
With a
shouldn't
guy
even
like
be talking
Bivol,
about this shit with somebody that got 60 fights. He got 60 fights. Okay?
he ain't gonna change. That's what you're saying.
Exactly what I'm saying. The man got
Can't
60
teach no
fights.
dog new tricks, huh?
Come on, man. He is who he is. That's why you need someone to be able to handle him with expert matchmaking and good, exciting matchups that's going to keep moving the needle. That's why he needs an Al Heyman and not an Eddie Hearn. But he fumbled the bag. And this was a horrible day for boxing.
It was.
I mean, I would tend to agree that Eddie Hearn, from his history, don't seem to be or whoever making his matchmaking ain't the smartest knife in the draw. Because shit, his fights, even though his fights can be sort of biased with judging at time, which is anyone's fights, his fighters seem to have more opportunity to lose. Which doesn't seem to be good to be for a promoter. I would imagine that they would win most of the time.
Well, yeah, I guess you want to put your fighters in the position to favorably win, but
Yeah,
Eddie Hearn doesn't necessarily do that with some of his fighters, like the Josh Warringtons or the Kid Gallaghans of the world or whatever it is. But I'm like but even overall, he really doesn't have that many fighters, to kind of like use. And yeah, to a certain extent, yes, he had Demetrius Andrade, but you see, up until this point, he didn't have Demetrius Andrade in the position to fight Canelo Alvarez, which is kind of like a step in the face of sorts to some. because this is the same Eddie Hearn that was able to position Daniel Jacobs to have a fight with Canelo Alvarez. But there was a considerable factor in that, as Daniel Jacobs was still under the advisement of a Mr. Al Heyman. So there's that. Now,
But how do you miss the mark on all these style matchups? Like, why is it always so close? Like, who is it that don't know
It's
or
Eddie
look?
Hearn. Eddie
He the
Hearn
matchmaker.
inherited his business from his daddy. He doesn't know shit about boxing. He was not born into boxing. He wasn't raised into boxing. He's a snookers and fucking darts kind of guy. Okay? He basically got gifted this boxing business by his daddy, but he didn't pay his dues. So he doesn't know matchmaking. He doesn't know shit.
But they have somebody on the payroll that does matchmaking.
boxing academic. The next time that Matchroom USA has an event in New York City, I'm sending NVO out there, and this time I'm going to tell them directly the comments of Mr. NVO. This is the same NVO that couldn't stand the whole freaking time for Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano.
That couldn't do what?
He could. He was able to. I think I was able to transfer credentials over to the Taylor Serrano event to him, and he manages not to stay in the entire event.
Listen, I support women's boxing by not watching it.
Okay, that gives me
What? What's the
the
rationale behind that?
opportunity. Hold
MVO.
on,
What's the rationale behind that?
hold on, Baxley Academic. Hold on. This gives me the open opportunity to say this: the views of MVO do not reflect the views of the boxing source. Be sure to remember that the views of MVO do not reflect the views of the Boxing Source radio show.
Okay, now can I answer him?
Okay.
Okay. First of all, women belong in the kitchen, not in the boxing ring. Okay. You have these people arguing for women to fight 3-minute rounds. But why would you want to see 36 minutes of that shit? You can't even tell who's landing. They look sloppy. They even Serrano versus Taylor, from the highlight that I saw, they got so tired they were just winging punches in like the 8th round. Like, come on. These women should not be boxing. They should either be ring card girls or maybe part of the announced team. Okay? I do not want to see women in the ring. They don't deserve to be in the ring. And that's all I have to say about that.
For those listening to this podcast, do not forget the disclaimer, okay? Oh, man. Oh, God. All right, yo. All right, I gotta move forward. Next weekend, Saturday, man, I'll be out there in the LA area. And no, I'm not going to the Sergey Kovalev card. No, I won't be there. I will be in attendance at the Dignity Health Sports Park in Carson, California, for the rematch between Jermell Charlo and Brian Carlos Castano for the undisputed super welterweight championships. Jermell Charlo says that he wants to knock Castano's ass out. Will he be able to do it here in this rematch, where some people felt like Brian Castano should have gotten a nod and should have been named the undisputed super welterweight champion last year? And you also have the co-feature Jerron Boots Ennis versus Casillo Clayton, two undefeated guys, and that's going to be determining who is the mandatory challenger for the IBF welterweight championship. These other fights here looks like Kevin Gonzalez at super bantamweight against Emmanuel Nieves and Luciano Sanchez against Adrian Silva is there too. But they're probably going to have a couple other fights out here on this card that they haven't quite announced yet. But I am ready for Charlo-Castano 2. It was a good fight, the first fight last year. Been waiting a good while for this particular fight to happen. Yeah, it should have happened in March, in mid-March, but Castano, uh, you know, had an injury of sorts, and so it was delayed. And Charlo has been raising questions about that. He said that in reference to him, he's been randomly tested, almost every other day. And hopefully that Casario was getting the same treatment. But he said that he is very, very eager to face Ryan Carlos Castano for the undisputed championships at 154 pounds. And yeah, the co-feature Jerome Bruce Ennis, everybody's talking about he's the next guy, he's the next superstar, he's one of the most complete fighters out there. Going up against Castillo Clayton, that people feel like it seems like people are overlooking Castillo Clayton as far as like his overall ability as a fighter. And so this might be something that may surprise a few folks. Maybe Clayton will make this a real fight against Sharon Bruce Ennis. But we'll see how that turns out. For me, I think Ennis still has a couple of things that he has to work on in his overall game. But we'll see if that shows itself here in this fight against Castillo Clayton. And I can't wait for this card. That's what's coming up, man. Any thoughts about this Charlo-Castano rematch out here? Want to start with MVO if he got something on it.
I'm just disappointed that this fight is not selling. I'm guessing that's because Charlo is the enemy of the bomb squad, and all enemies of the bomb squad shall have no good come to them. So I guess the people are not responding. Maybe the fans that he thought he was going to pick up by talking shit about Wilder will buy those tickets late. We'll see. I'm very excited to see Boots Ennis. I need to see what this guy's going to do against Clayton. Clayton is very hard to look good against. So if Boots could do what he do and blow him out, I think that's a very good look for Boots, and will put him basically one victory away from a title shot. I hope that Charlo gets this victory because the American boxing scene needs it. So let's hope Charlo gets his victory, and then we can get on to the big fights at 154 that we all want to see, like Charlo versus Fundora, Charlo versus Tim Tszyu, even a Charlo versus Jared Hearn if he can get back right. There's a lot of fights to be had at 154, and the biggest fights involve Jermell Charlo. So let's see if he can right the ship and turn that draw into a KO victory.
Now, in reference to Jermell Charlo, and you talk about the potential fights that he could still have there at 154 pounds. But the fights that he's already had at 154 pounds kind of like make him, one of the top fighters around in the sport. It seems like people, or some people, don't bring up the resume of a Jermell Charlo who's been at 154 for his entire career, but they bring up the resumes of other fighters that have fought in one division in their entire career. And I think that, uh, you know, that they're, one of the greatest guys in the division's history. But hey, we'll see how that works here with Charlo. I mean, I think that if he goes in there and he has a performance like he did against Jason Rosario and ends up stopping Castano, then people can't really take credit away from him in that particular sense. But if he's able to win, then yeah, he'll have those potential matchups out there at 154 pounds waiting for him. If Castano wins, then that could, open up a good number of fights for him too. So in one of them was a potential fight with a guy that is a division below him. But that remains to be seen. But I think it's going to be an all action fight with that. And the thing with Boots there versus Castillo Clayton, the winner should be the guy next in line to fight for the IBF title. Talking with Boots over at the Bosie's Dungeon in Philadelphia a few weeks back says that if he gets this win, there's no denying him for getting a title shot. That they're going to try to push right for that title shot. So with that being said, hopefully that lines everything up for, of course, Errol Spence versus Terrence Crawford to be next. And there's kind of like hints going out there that fight could be next for both of those guys. But outside of that, we got to see here if Boots Sanders has the same type of performance that he's had in his previous few fights, and makes it be like he'll be one of the more exciting fighters out there. And then hopefully he'll end up being someone that can have, if he doesn't have a world title fight next, that his next fight should be a headliner fight in Philadelphia or somewhere. But up to this point, he hasn't had one of those things yet. So there's that on that note, man. But kind of like just want to get through all that. I've never seen this Tervel Pulev guy. I didn't know that there was brother or cousin named Pulev, Tervel Pulev.
Yeah, that's his cruiserweight brother.
Yeah, cruiserweight brother. Like I didn't know he had that. And then you got the little Vargas brothers. That's part of this card at the Forum in Inglewood, California. Kubrat Pulev's going to be fighting Jerry Forrest. I should have been able to get an interview with Jerry Forrest there, man. I should have caught that before he was going out there. And also, Evan Holyfield is going to be on this card against Jermaine McDonald. So,
Young Holy.
Yeah, Young Holy's going to be there. And, it's a versus Cypress Hill versus Onyx. People ain't going to catch that.
Do they even have enough hits to do a whole show?
Who, Onyx?
Either one of them.
I don't know. It's supposed to be 10 each, right?
20.
20?
Yeah.
Wait, 20 tracks each?
20 tracks each.
No, I don't think, no. Well, hold on. But okay. Damn, even with that, it might not even be good.
Not even close.
Remember the whole thing with the Bone Thugs?
Slam. Dum.
Okay, you named one. Give me some other ones.
Slam
I got 5 on it.
That's the Lunas.
Absolutely.
Oh my god.
I quit.
Hey, yo, no, I was saying, hey, with the thing with Bone Thugs versus 3-6, they also had the thing where they used when they had been like a feature person.
Yeah, you can do that.
Yeah, you can do that. But
they still ain't got 20.
He still not even have 20.
Cypress Hill and Onyx can't even get to 20 together. Let alone 20 each. Come on now. So you want to be a rock superstar, live large, the big house, 5 cars, no rent charge. Come on, man. Get the fuck out of here with that bullshit.
Oh man, it's gonna be horrible, man. But hey, it's gonna happen. I don't even think if I had well, I don't think I can't reply to that, but hey, if I run into any of those either Indian fighters or thing with the guests out there for that, then you might catch a few interviews that'll be on the YouTube channel for that. But for the time for like from I'd say Thursday until Saturday. You'll see coverage of that Charlo-Castano rematch. Will be on the Boxing Source YouTube channel, so you will have. Now, want to get back to MVO, who, as I said, is the former president of the Deontay Wilder fan club, and he has something exclusively from the rumor report, or at least that's what I've heard, in reference to Deontay Wilder. Go ahead.
Word on the street is that the powers that be in boxing, I'm talking about Mauricio Suleiman, I'm talking about Shelly Finkel, I'm talking about Al Heyman. Word on the street is that they are doing everything they can to entice Deontay Wilder to come back to boxing this summer to fight for the WBC heavyweight title. Right now, from what I hear, is the WBC is looking to force Tyson Fury to make a decision if he's going to vacate. And if he vacates, the WBC would like the great future Hall of Famer, the legendary Deontay Wilder, they would like for him to fight for that vacant belt against number 4 contender in the WBC, Frank Sanchez.
Well, could be the return of the bronze bomber, Deontay Wilder. And like you said, I mean, we got to see what Mauricio Suleiman will say. Speaking of Mauricio Suleiman, I did send something out to him in reference to doing an interview after talking with him at the thing for Dallas for Spence versus Dugas. I sent an email. He hasn't sent nothing back. He's ducking me, son. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, you need to hit him up on Twitter. He seems to answer on Twitter.
I'll call him out on Twitter. All right. But yeah, Mauricio Suleiman could be, he could do a little bit of workings here and there. He'll call up Tyson Fury. He'll say, hey, look, Tyson, what you going to do? If you go ahead and fight with Francis Ngannou, go ahead and give up that belt.
Yep.
Hey, you were the one that said, maybe I'll just give up the belt and have, Deontay Wilder fight for the belt, So, hey, if you're saying that, then, hey, why don't you put your money where your mouth is?
Now, someone from Deontay Wilder's camp reached out to me yesterday. I'm not going to say who, but they reached out to me yesterday, and they said basically that the rumors are not exactly true, that Shelly Finkel has reached out to Deontay Wilder, but there's no word if he himself is interested in coming back. It is the powers that be in boxing that are trying to align to bring him back, because I guess they realize, like I try to tell you guys, boxing needs Deontay Wilder. So Mauricio, Shelly, and Al, they're putting their minds together, they're putting their hearts together, and they're putting their wallets together. They're going to back up the truck, and they're going to entice the big fella to come out of his unannounced retirement to fight for that WBC strap against Frank Sanchez. And I can't wait. It's going to be big in the summer. From what I can gather, this is why you haven't heard anything about any announcements from Fox, because Fox is looking to finalize this fight, and then they're going to make their schedule based upon Deontay Wilder's return.
Okay.
Now, is that a good matchup for him, Frank Sanchez? I know he's smaller, which is a good thing, in terms of reach, but with him being able to box and move and just always being like a heavyweight Lundy Lara.
Come on, man. This is Deontay Wilder, Luis Ortiz 3. No, I'm just kidding.
Listen, Frank Sanchez is barbecue chicken alert. Okay. Wilder's not a jogger.
Nope.
Yo, he definitely not.
Definitely not. Okay. Now, you're talking about, Shelly Finkel, Al Heyman, and, well, not Mauricio Sullivan, but Shelly Finkel and Al Heyman backing up the British truck. Okay. Now, we know what Deontay Wilder has gotten for his fights with Tyson Luke Fury. So I ask, what would you think the figure would be that would have Deontay Wilder get up to go ahead and face Frank Sanchez for potentially the vacant WBC heavyweight championship?
20 million.
20 million.
He ain't getting out of bed for 20.
So anything less than 20, he ain't doing it.
He ain't getting out of bed. Come on, man. You see his woman? You see what he's sleeping next to? He ain't getting out of that bed for less than 20 million.
Yeah, I've seen that woman. I see what you're talking about.
Yeah, man. He ain't getting out of bed for less than 20 million.
Yeah, man. But yeah, that would be for potentially the vacant WBC World Heavyweight Championship, as we know that Joe Joyce and Joseph Parker are scheduled to face each other for that mandatory spot at the WBO, and they're number 2 and number 3 in the WBC. So there's that. But hey, you said Fox, and my thing with that is that could potentially go or take away that potential date that I had in store for Errol Spence versus Terrence Crawford. I said, hey, maybe you could have Errol Spence versus Terrence Crawford next, and it would be on August 20th, 2022. Given that,
No.
but that doesn't look like it's in the cards.
Yeah, it's like for Spence versus Crawford. It's looking like a November fight.
It's probably be a November fight, yeah. But damn, Terrence Crawford doesn't even want to have a fight in the interim.
Yeah.
So he wants to fight the year? Okay, cool.
So he says.
Right. But as of right now, I mean, we don't see like any fight that's on the horizon for Terrence Crawford yet. That could be in the summer. So I don't know.
For some reason, I still think we're getting Thurman versus Crawford in July.
July?
Yeah. I don't know why I think that. I just think we're still getting that in July.
Maybe. Have we really heard that much from Keith Thurman recently?
Yeah, he said he wants to get back in the mix.
Yeah, he wants to
says
get back.
They gotta fight him.
Yeah. But I don't think he's really said much about having another fight with Terrence Crawford, or having a fight with Terrence Crawford. So, hey, maybe that could be in the cards for him. So, we'll see. I mean, if they have the money for it, let's go.
Yeah.
I have no issues with that fight happening next. I think that fight should happen in order for the powers that be to have pretty much a good gauge on what they could potentially get for Spence versus Crawford if Crawford ends up fighting and beating Thurman. So I have no issues with that. So there's that. Is there like any other teases on the rumor report, or is that thing there with Deontay Wilder pretty much what you got?
That thing with Deontay Wilder is pretty much what I got, but I would like to ask you a question, hypothesizing. If Canelo decides to take the Bivol rematch, obviously that eliminates Canelo versus Golovkin.
Yes.
Would that mean that this fucking guy Golovkin finally gets the cojones to fight Jermell Charlo?
Hell no.
Is that even a question you had to ask?
Yeah,
Matt,
because
really?
what is he gonna do? Sit out the rest of the year?
Try to fight whatever the dude, the Jaime.
Oh
Hell
my
no, he
gosh.
ain't gonna fight him either.
Oh my gosh.
You kidding me? If he
You
would have
think
fought,
Jaime offered too much of a challenge?
he would have fought. He would have fought Jaime Munguia by now.
It's not happening.
It's not happening.
But I just need
That's
to
why
see.
you know what? Like I said earlier, and I don't think this is happening either. Gennady Golovkin could go out and face Chris Eubank Jr., but I don't think he's going to do that either.
He's probably just gonna sit around for Canelo.
He's going to sit around for Canelo, man. Like it would be 41, he could be 42 or whatever it is. He gonna sit around for Canelo, man. That's what's gonna happen. You know. What is it? Real quick there. Yeah, man. It's like Fury is like done, man. He's done. He's good. He don't really want to get in the ring that much anymore, man. He's
I think
probably
he'll come back if AJ beats Usyk.
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
he could. But we'll see if AJ beats Usyk, though.
Yeah, because he doesn't care about Usyk. And
Yeah, he
I
really
agree with
doesn't.
him. I agree with him. This is what I'm talking about. Big events.
Big events.
This is what I agree wholeheartedly with Tyson Fury. Big events. Call it what you want. You want to say he's ducking? Who gives a shit what you think? Big events only.
So you're telling me the true boxing fans know who the real champion is at heavyweight? Is that what you're telling me? Whether he
Yes.
fight. Remember, you tried to shit on the true boxing fans and boxing uh, diagnostics and shit like that earlier in the
I still
conversation.
do. I still do.
Okay.
The heavyweight champion of the world is Tyson Fury. Everybody else is fighting for second place.
That's true. That's true.
No. And that's it. There's only one Tyson Fury.
Yes.
You know, so
All right. So who pound for pound number one? I don't know if you was gonna mention that later in the show.
Yeah.
I
Since I had kind of like had to get this podcast started, I missed that top half of the MVO top 10 pound for pound fighters. So now I could get what he has at the top of the pound for pound list.
All right, let's see what the boxing academic, aka his mama called him Mike Grady, so I'm gonna call him Mike Grady. Let's see what the boxing academic thinks of the MVO top 10 pound for pound. We ready? Boxing academic?
That shit probably trash. No, I'm just playing.
At number
I'm ready.
10, Kazuto Ioka.
Who? Hey, I'm gonna start listening when you get to number 5.
At number 9, Stephen Fulton.
Man, he should be higher, but anyway.
At number 8, Tyson Luke Fury.
Tyson Luke Fury.
Okay. At number 7, Gervonta Tank Davis.
Okay.
At number 6, Jermell MAGA Charlo. At number 5, Roman Chocolatito Gonzalez.
Whoa.
At number 4, the monster, Naoya Inoue.
Okay.
Is this an ESPN thing? ESPN breaker?
ESPN.
At number 3, top ranked Terrence Blood Crawford. At number 2, Alexander Usyk.
WTF.
At number 1, Errol the Truth Spence Jr.
Canelo wasn't in your list?
Canelo is no longer in the MVO top 10 pound for pound.
Who's your number 1 again?
Come on, man.
Errol the Truth Spence Jr.
Listen.
Number two was Usyk. Number 3 was who else?
Crawford.
And number 4 was who else?
Anyway.
And 5 was
Chocolatito.
Okay.
Hmm.
You want my opinion on your list?
Absolutely.
I mean, it's all right. I mean, it's okay. I think my list is better than yours, but okay.
Of
Who's
course you
counting?
do. You're the boxing academic. Of course you do. You are the Lex Luthor to my Superman. Of
We,
course you
we,
think your shit is better.
I ain't your enemy. I'm your contemporary.
Oh, so you are Bizarro Superman to my Superman. You remember the little retarded Superman? Like,
Hey! Don't nobody watch DC, man. It's all about Marvel. What you talking about? It's all about Marvel. All right, I'm
Oh,
gonna get my list. I'm gonna start from number one because I only
number
count like
one. That's
the
come on,
top.
man.
I mean, I got to think about it. I know who the top one, and I just go down from there. I ain't got 10. I just got like 3 or 4.
hey, that's better than me.
Oh my gosh.
So number one, Errol Spence.
Thank you. At least we agree on that.
Yes, consensus.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, Tyson Fury.
Whoa.
Whoa.
Number three,
Whoa.
Terrence Crawford. Number four, I still give it to Canelo. And then after that, I don't really
What?
care.
What?
Damn.
You said pound for pound. I rate my pound for pound off of yes, potential, but also like production.
What about skills?
I said potential, so yes, skills, but production.
So let me
Errol
ask you a
Spence.
question. Let me ask you a
Yes, sir.
question.
Go ahead.
So, watching Canelo versus Bivol last night, do you think that Bivol beat him just because he was bigger than him?
I think Bivol's size definitely helped him take the punches that would get a smaller man out. Yeah.
I felt like Bivol just simply outboxed him and embarrassed him and made him look amateurish.
I
I don't
mean
think
that too.
size was the big difference.
But if he was smaller, then what's his name? Like the shots that he was landing, for example, on that real tall dude who
Callum
his
Smith.
arm was who?
Callum Smith.
Callum Smith. The same thing happened. Bivol got a strong mind, obviously. And so Callum Smith, he kept hitting him on the arm, and his arm came down, which is why he got eventually caught. And he ain't as tight as Bivol as well. But what I'm saying is it was similar, but Bivol mentally wasn't gonna let himself falter, or at least it was gonna take 10, 3, 4 more rounds. And by that point, Canelo endurance was gone. I don't know if I answered your question. I feel like I'm
Nah, I don't think he answered the question.
Nah.
yeah.
I don't
All
know
right.
what the hell
So
you talking about.
I'm rating Canelo wherever I rated him off of his body of work. Yeah, there are better fighters than Canelo. Yeah, Canelo has shown himself to be one or two dimensional. He has a style that works for him. But you can't in the current crop of fighters, I can't take away from his body of work, even though that was a bad style matchup. And he, to an extent, lazy. He lazy and old, and old in terms of boxing years. And he kind of gotta reinvent himself, or he fights that are in his lane. Matchmake, like you said earlier in the show. But I'm ranking him just off of body of work. But I think I ranked him 4, right? Like he can't be in front of Tyson Fury, he can't be in front of Terrence Crawford, can't be in front of Errol Spence. Maybe there's somebody else that need to be up there, but these are the ones that I know, at least in my mind, should be the top 3 or so.
Man. Man, oh man. All right. Man,
But
so
your ranking sound like ESPN, Inoue, and Chocolatito. Even though Chocolatito is coming on, I would like to see those two guys fight. But yeah.
Your rankings only go 4 deep. You gotta stop it.
All right, I got my 10, man.
Uh-oh.
I
Here
got
we
my
go. Ladies and gentlemen, for the first time ever on the Boxing Source, the Boxing Source top 10 pound-for-pound fighters in the world. Let's hear it, JR.
All right, here we go. So, number 10, we have Kazuto Ioka.
Woo!
So, Kazuto Ioka at number 10. Number 9, he may go up after this particular fight, but at number 9 currently is Jermell Charlo.
Wow, that's really low. Wow.
For now. At number 8, and this is why I say that it could change pretty considerably. Stephen Fulton, cool boy
Yes.
Stephen Fulton.
He will be fighting Dana Rahman.
2021 Boxing Source Fighter of the Year.
Yep,
Okay?
he'll be fighting Dana Rahman on June 4th in Minneapolis at the Armory.
Okay. Number 7, who will eventually go down because of quote unquote inactivity. The undisputed champion at 140 pounds, Josh Taylor. Okay.
Well, I forgot he fights.
Right? Now, the number 6 is the Ring Magazine champion currently in his division, Juan Francisco Estrada.
Wow.
Okay? Now, at number 5 is a guy that should have been able to face Juan Francisco Estrada, but didn't end up doing that. But it'll still happen later on down the line. And that is Roman Chocolatito Gonzalez.
Let's go.
All right. Now, at number 4, the WBO welterweight champion, Terrence.
Ooh, bump the ball.
Now, at number 3, the buzzsaw, the monster, Naoya Inoue. No, it ain't the monster, a dude that's at 168 pounds. It's the monster, Naoya Inoue. Okay?
Yeah. Is that an ESPN list, boxing academic?
I mean, I ain't want to repeat myself, but yeah, it's kind of sounded like it.
Come on, man.
Let's hear his number 1. Let's see who his number 1 is.
Well, who's number 2, first of all?
Well, yeah, number 2 is the man that is attempting to have or probably end up having a better feat than a guy that moved up from cruiserweight years back in Evander Holyfield, and that is Alexander Usyk, the undisputed champion at cruiserweight and unified champion at heavyweight, Alexander Usyk. And
Definitely ESPN. Definitely ESPN.
it leaves at number 1, the unified welterweight champion of the world, the truth, Errol Spence Jr.
So Tyson Fury ain't in your list nowhere?
No, he's not on my list. He's not on my list. Even with the abilities that he has, even with the skill set that he has, the resume is just not there. He only
You know why Tyson Fury's not on his list? Because JR is the president and CEO of the Deontay Wilder Hate Club. That's why. He does not respect the great Deontay Wilder. So that is why he does not highly rate Tyson Fury. That's all it is.
That's interesting.
Hating asshole, man. I can't believe it.
Come on, man. Yo, hell no.
Who the top heavyweight to you, JR?
top-rated heavyweight is Tyson Fury.
Okay. So you telling me the top-rated heavyweight should not be ranked higher than a flyweight or a bantamweight or any one of these no-name motherfuckers?
No, it's no name to you because you don't pay attention.
I watch these dudes. They fun when you like want to see a bee or something, like hitting people and you know how Matt said something about women's boxing. It's probably 1 or 2 steps above women's boxing. That's just how I feel.
God damn!
Oh shit!
Tyson Fury, you know,
shit!
he bring the heat, man. Put some respect on Tyson Fury's name, man.
He says,
Oh shit! Oh, yo, you gotta put that clip up on Twitter. That
Nah,
was
don't
a
put it up on
quotable.
Twitter. Hey, don't get me canceled, man. Don't put me on Twitter, man.
That was a quotable.
Do not put me on Twitter.
That was a
I do not
quotable.
give Boxing Source permission to use my likeness and my voice.
I would just like to say the views of Mike Grady and the Boxing Academic do not reflect the views of the Boxing Source. Oh shit! Yo. He sent the little guys to hell. Oh my god.
I respect what they do. Let me just say that. I respect anyone who steps in the ring.
First of all, he said it's like bees.
Oh shit. Mike Grady. Wow.
Why I got to be the bad guy? Why I got to be the bad guy? Why you got to make me out to be the bad guy?
Hey, that was great, man. That was great content.
That was great. Oh shit. Yo.
That is great content.
That
Wow.
That right there is a great opening to the 8th season of the Boxing Source Radio Show. Oh shit. Yo.
Wow. My man Mike.
Those are the moments that we have over the course of 7 completed seasons of this podcast. And this is another classic sound bite. Oh shit. Oh, this is great. That was great. Oh my god. Oh, I gotta close on that, yo.
That was great.
Woo!
That was great.
Y'all better not try to get me canceled.
Hey man, listen. The truth is the truth. Live your truth, my brother.
Let me tell you something, man. As many comments that MVO has stated on this particular show, and he's still here. Okay? So
didn't he get canceled off Facebook?
Literally.
And he had to reinvent himself.
But people don't know you as the boxing academic on Facebook.
Oh, thanks to Matt saying my name.
he done gave you up, man. He done gave you up like he gave up names to the feds.
Thank you, Matt. Dang, man.
Yes, for those looking to cancel him.
Takashi 6ix9ine, you dog.
just look up Mike Grady, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh my god, yo. Oh man, yeah, that's it for this particular episode of the Boxing Source Radio Show. You'll get back at it next Sunday. At a remote location of sorts or whatever it is. After covering Charlo-Castano over in Carson, California. Once again, I thank everyone that has been a part of the Boxing Source for the past 7 seasons. Y'all have been a great contribution to the podcast, to the movement. pretty much, hey, like I say, man, if there's none of y'all, then there ain't no me, man. So I thank all of y'all. And as I say at the end of every show, folks, point of boxing is to hit and not get hit, not to send the trade. On that note, folks, I'm out. Have a good evening, everybody.
Bomb squad, baby.